Hi, I'm Deion Allen in for the Eagles Eye, and today we have a special segment for you with Mr. Bankus. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. He is an environmental science teacher and also a water expertise. So, how long have you been teaching in high school?
It's my second year here at Norristown High School, my fourth year teaching overall.
Okay, so how do you like the environmental science?
It was my original degree was in geoenvironmental studies. Besides that, I also did a little bit of interning at the Chester County Conservation District. What I did there is water resource management. My previous teaching position was at biology and ecology of aquatic systems. So I pretty much spent my past 8 years doing water related.
So, when water research management, what does that consist of?
What I would do is I would go out to agricultural farms and whatnot, and we would figure out where the water was coming from, how much sediment stuff was getting into the stream, how much fertilizer was getting into the stream, and what kind of effects would have downstream.
All right, so you know we have this great water epidemic here. Can you tell us what's going on with that?
What was released was that it was an issue with sedimentation. So what's occurring is there's too much sediment in the water that's coming into the treatment plant.
Right.
So upstream, the Schuylkill River, which is the source, has a lot of different sediments, soils, leaves, trees, all that kind of stuff. And what happened is the increase in water flow from the Schuylkill River during that big rain event. Whenever you increase the flow of water, you increase the amount of sediments and the size of the sediments that could be contributed downstream. So all that stuff got carried downstream, headed to the water treatment plant, which again, the source is the Schuylkill. So all that water with all that sediments coming into the Schuylkill, and they have to figure out a way to treat it.
All right. So, what are some things that can occur within this epidemic?
So what happened was, as far as I know, I mean, from reading some of the statements from the water treatment plant, is they were discussing the fact that once the water was coming in, the first step in the water treatment process is taking the water and having it settle the sediments out. The more sediments you have, the longer it needs to settle out, the more flock you need to add to it, which just helps the settling occur. And also the more sediments that are getting combined together with the filter.
Right.
So if the filter gets a lot of sediments in it, then it's going to slow the amount of water that's being released through that first step, which has adverse effects as it goes through the water treatment process.
So, what are some problems that people can encounter if they don't take heed to these advices that you and the news are giving?
The very first thing that was released was the conservation concept.
Right.
They said minimize the amount of water. The reason why they were saying that was because there wasn't enough water going through the system. So if we continue to use water in the normal way, there's going to be more of the polluted or untreated water that has to come through the system to keep the pressure up. So the first step was minimizing the amount of water that's being used for lawns, for cars, for all unnecessary means.
Right. Okay, so this is kind of a personal question, but I'm pretty sure everybody else has this too. I have a water purifier on my sink tap. Does that do anything to it, or?
It helps the process, but as far as cleaning out completely, you got to remember that one of the things that's being added is bacteria. So bacteria is not something those water purifiers actually take care of. They typically take care of more of like the metals and the sediments. So you can still have bacteria in the water once the sediments are still taken out, even though the bacteria itself is attached to the sediments. So you still have it. You can still have an issue with bacteria in there.
Okay. So this issue is occurring in schools. There are some schools shut down. Why is that?
Some of the schools shut down, from my assumption, I'm guessing, is because they couldn't meet the standard needs of how much water was required or how much cleaning water was required for the process. That doesn't mean that that's the occurrence that needs to happen always.
So would that do water fountains, sinks, lunch?
Yeah, cleaning dishes, all those types of things. As far as they made a comment that as long as you boil the water, you can wash your dishes in it. So it's a matter of how much dishes have to actually be washed or whatnot.
Right, but for drinking water, I mean, you can't boil water and then cool it back down and drink. It's too long of a process.
Yeah, it's a long process, but you can go through that process of actually boiling it. If you boil it for about 2 minutes, it should be pretty much good to utilize afterwards, because that takes care of the bacteria. Let me be clear on one thing here. When you're taking the bacteria out, you can boil the water to get rid of the bacteria, but one thing you cannot do by just boiling is get rid of the particulate matters, such as that cloudy water, the metals that are in there. So they're still harmful. So boiling this water alone will not get it safe for consumption.
So back to the sedimentation issue. What exactly is the sedimentation in the water, or where does it come from?
It can come from any kind of land disturbance. It comes naturally from stream bank erosion and whatnot of the Schuylkill River. It's basically just soil and other solid particles are being added to the water. Some good examples looking around here, I mean, just in the Norristown region and looking at even Oaks, you've got construction and stuff going on. All of that stuff is leaving land disturbed. That land disturbed, once we have these huge rain events, picks up the soil that's sitting out open and travels eventually through a watershed into a stream or a river.
So we can't say this is solely an issue, but we can contribute construction and other land disturbances to this.
Yeah, and what you want to do when you look at an issue like this, when you look at an issue that deals with water, and you're talking about the concept of there being something added to the water, you don't necessarily have to look in the specific region that it's actually occurring in. You want to start off by looking upstream. So you look up what's going on upstream from you to figure out what is actually being added to your source, which again is the Schuylkill River.
And upstream is neighboring regions?
Neighboring regions. I mean, you have a water treatment plant up in Pottstown.
Okay.
They're doing the same type of things up there, only they're dealing with less amounts of water, less amounts of sediment. So all of that stuff is being added to the Schuylkill that's eventually coming down towards you guys down here as well, toward us in Norristown.
Okay. So to touch on a more serious topic, this is what this is a big hoopla about this. Washing hands and showering versus drinking. Are you able to wash your hands and shower in this dirty water?
Yeah, when you're talking about the bacteria, you're talking about you want to ingest as little bit as possible.
Right.
So drinking it is a big issue. You don't want to be drinking any of it whatsoever. As far as showers and hands, you're talking about once you wash your hands with that and you dry it off, typically what happens is the bacteria ends up dying and you're in good shape.
Right.
So washing hands, those types of things, not an issue. Now talking about something like washing dishes, you don't want that stuff on your dishes that you're going to be putting food onto.
Right.
So when you do the dishes, you want to make sure that you boil the water before you actually wash the dishes with it. Now, what boiling constitutes is bringing the water to a boil and then boiling the water for 2 minutes. That's what is recommended from different environmental agencies as far as cleaning the water enough to be able to be usable.
And some people don't. That is an old theory to boil water to kill all the germs, and some people don't actually adhere to that. So can you basically explain what boiling water does to all the bacteria and germs?
Yeah, I mean, in simplest form is when you have the bacteria and you have it in water, boiling it kills the bacteria. It doesn't get rid of the bacteria, but the bacteria is dead, so that once it gets into your body, it can't harm your body in any way, shape, or form because it's essentially dead.
Okay. So back to the washing hands, you're also allowed to shower in the water, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
How long has this water been an issue?
Well, the issue started back with that huge rain event we had a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
That's what stirred up the large velocities, again, of water that brought the sediments down through the Schuylkill River. So it started there. Different things like when it's moving down, soil erosion from the banks, all that type of stuff, that added to it. What they realized was, I'm making the assumption because I know the release of when the issue occurred from the water treatment plant was on Tuesday, is that's when they noticed they were having an issue with how much water was actually going through the plant. So that's when the actual problem occurred, and it was a quantity issue versus a quality issue. It became a quality issue once they didn't have enough actual clean water and the pressure, they had to pass more water through the system. As far as when it could be possibly over, the earliest is Friday. They have to go through a 48 period of 2 consecutive bacteria-free tests. One test, 24 hours later, another test, 24 hours, the final test. And if it fits those bacteria regulations, it's good to, again, use.
Okay, so Friday is when you think it'll be over?
At minimum. If the test went fine today, yes.
All right.
Friday.
I was on a social media, and then there was a post that's saying that it might be over. It won't be over till like next Monday or something. Do you think that's true?
Your best bet for finding information out about stormwater and different types of sedimentation that deals with water, adding stuff like that, looking at EPA websites, looking at the Montgomery Conservation District, looking at American Water, who is the actual company who's dealing with cleaning the water here in Norristown. They're your best bets for really good, reliable information. A lot of times you run into the social media gloom and doom. As soon as an event happens, it's
Right.
the worst it could possibly be. And everybody kind of jumps to that conclusion. But this is a situation that if they fixed everything they needed to, they could be good to go by Friday.
Okay. Do you have any final advice that you would like to give anybody for the water epidemic?
Just the fact that I know it's rough and it's an inconvenience when you run into a situation where they say, please limit the amount of water that you're using. But a simple household utilizing that type of information and minimizing what they're using can help the water treatment plant get all of the water treated and passed back through the system in a clean way for everybody else. So it is the small things that people do that help the whole situation.
So just preserve. That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
it's take that into consideration of what you do has an impact for everybody else around you.
All right, thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
being here. I was just here with Mr. Bankus, learning about his expertise on the water epidemic. Now back to Eagle's Eye.